Welcome to a presentation from the Nevada Department of Education. Thank you for joining us. With the onset of the coronavirus, teaching and learning in the traditional classroom has come to a halt. Today, schools across the nation and throughout the world have transitioned to remote learning. The Nevada Digital Learning Collaborative is glad to bring you the COVID-19 series of webinars, which will share valuable insights and tips for teaching and learning from afar. Today's topic is Remote Teaching and Learning, featuring Kim Loomis of I3 Digital PD. Welcome, I'm Kim Loomis. I have worked in the field of digital learning since 1999. I spent 10 years in the classroom as a high school mathematics teacher before pursuing positions in school leadership and central office administration. I retired last summer as the Director for Online and Blended Learning in Nevada's Clark County School District. I provided leadership in the growth of digital learning in the K-12 setting, from teacher training, school admin consultation, secondary course development, software and systems contracting, to designing deployment models. I have over 20 years in the online and blended school setting, from teaching, designing, training, and administration, to managing systems and processes for growing classrooms of the future. Today, I head a consulting company, I3 Digital PD, which helps others across the nation grow high-quality digital learning programs. Our agenda for this webinar will begin by looking at remote learning. We will then move into a discussion on continuous learning, where we will focus on essential standards and look at digital content and tools. This webinar will share insights on how to engage students, and then we'll wrap up with tips for a successful deployment of remote teaching and learning. So, let's begin. As the former online and blended learning director, you know I'm a huge fan of digital learning. Even today, I help others across the nation establish actively engaging learning environments so that students are empowered to take ownership of their own learning. As the founder of I3 Digital PD, I have numerous blogs on partnering with digital content, and I've authored a book titled Think Outside the Box. But I never, in my wildest dreams, would have expected a world quite like the one that we have been pushed into today. In these trying times, we will remember that all stakeholders, that's teachers, administrators, students, and parents, we're all learning new skills and pedagogies. These are difficult times such that everyone is trying to step up to the challenge of remote learning. So please be patient with yourself and those around you. Just like you, your administrators, they too are trying to wrap their minds around learning from afar. So please be patient with them as well. It will be important that we remember to focus on the core business of schools, that of relationships and learning. Even with the addition of technology as a tool for learning, we should never take the heart out of the classroom. And the teachers, you are the most important part of that classroom. Your students need to know that you're still there for them in this remote learning process. And as you transition to remote learning, keep in mind these two statements. We are all learning new skills and pedagogy. And we want to focus on the core business of schools, that of relationships and learning. So ideally, before you start a distance learning program, I would say let's do some targeted professional development and let's set up some plans. But however, in our current state of emergencies, educators were caught in a triage mode, and we're not in a position to craft an ideal learning environment. The key is to maintain that indispensable human touch of teaching and learning during this period of social distancing. With school closures, our focus should not be on online or distance learning. It's about maintaining continuous learning. About technology, it's going to be that crucial tool for learning when the physical classrooms and schools are closed. But yet, teaching and learning is not about the technology. No. Try to focus in on that core business of schools, relationships, and learning. Remember, we're in a triage mode. Nothing's going to be perfect. It's not ideal, so we have to be flexible with ourselves and those people around us. Again, focus in on the relationships and the learning. So when I think of remote learning, I really think of two different types of learning, right? This kind of really was so rapid. It caught us off of, surprise. We were all like, well, what do we do now? And so a lot of us started what we call learning extensions. These were like review activities, some major general practices that kids could do at home. Oftentimes it wasn't graded. It was just like kind of like that summer take home package, right? Just extending the learning, right? Versus what I like to call continued learning. That's when we look at where we were in mid-March when we had to leave the classroom. And we want to look at that content that we missed. That new content that the students weren't exposed to, that were in our benchmarked calendars that we never got to, that were aligned to standards. That's where we want to continue that learning. Now, sometimes that continued learning is going to come in the form of paper packets, and some of it might be just open up your book and work out of a textbook. A vast majority of it, of course, in these remote learning stages are to come via technology, but we'll want to balance all of those. So remember, learning extensions, it's kind of like what we're seeing down here in Clark, where we've got paper and packets, we've got, our Channel 10 PBS station, and the kids have been told it's not graded, it doesn't count. But where we really want to go, so that we don't create gaps in our learning, is we want to look at that stuff that we missed in third quarter and what we might have missed in fourth quarter, that content that students have yet to be exposed to. Right? That stuff that was on our benchmark calendars that we didn't get to. We need to get there because we don't want to create learning gaps. But teaching and learning from afar is difficult, right? There's no bells, there's tons of distractions, and heck, you're going to homes that have limited or shared resources. I'm in a home that has 4 of us, right? I got kicked out of my own office because my spouse came home to work from home, right? And I got one kid home from college. She closed down UNR and she had to come home. I've got another one at Southwest CTA down here in Clark, and she's working from home. There are no bells and there's tons of distractions. It's not really an ideal location for learning. Even for you, working from home has many challenges as well. And our homes, unlike our 4-walled classrooms, are limited in resources. Some families are sharing space, supplies, and devices, right? And the family dynamics, we don't know what's going on in our students' homes, right? Siblings are home 24/7, possibly sharing one device. Boy, is that going to cause lots of sibling rivalry. And who knows if parents are away at work or possibly unemployed due to shelter in place. Can you imagine having to share space in a 3-bedroom home with 3 children, 2 parents, and an aging grandmother? We don't know the learning environment that our students are coming from, right? So we have to be patient with them, and we have to be patient with ourselves. Think of the dynamics that have changed in your life. Do you still have access to all the resources that you once had in your classroom? You are still pulling from many different directions. You too probably have children at home. So again, it's not the ideal situation, but we can make it work. So when we think of this, remember, like I said at the beginning, we're looking at all stakeholders and they're learning new skills and new pedagogy, right? So be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your students and their families. And be patient with your administrators. We're all trying to get caught up. Make sure that you're providing guidance, kind of like what you're seeing over here on the left, this continuous learning guide, giving your students some steps that'll help them establish some routines and be comfortable with finding a space that they can be successful in, and how to communicate not only with you, but with their peers. And now that we're in a world where Google is at their hands, we really need to talk about academic integrity and honesty, right? And making good choices. So a small little poster like this that you would normally hang up in your classroom, you might want to hang up in your digital learning environment or send out once a week, just to remind students that we are in a continuous learning guide. And this last bullet reminds us to fail forward. Right? Well, I love to say fail forward. It's that first attempt in learning, right? You just need to pick up. We're going to make mistakes. I'm probably going to make mistakes on this webinar here. I'm going to stumble over my words. I might not have the right slide at the right time, but that's okay. We just pick up, we reflect, and we try again. Remember, we're all learning new pedagogy. We're all learning new skills, and it's not going to be perfect. Most of all, be patient with yourself and be patient with those around you. I saw this quote the other day and I just had to share it. And this is such a great quote because we are in challenging times, and the challenges that we're going to face, they're going to test us, and hopefully they're going to strengthen us. And if we don't fail, well then dang, we're not really pushing our limits. And heck, if we don't push our limits, then we can't really maximize our potential. And if we can't do that for ourselves, how can we expect our students to do it for themselves? So remember, yes, there's going to be pain, right? You're going to try out a new software program, or you're going to try a lesson plan and it's going to fall flat. That's okay. There's going to be pain. What we need to do is take that pain and reflect on it. Reflect on how we could be better next time, or maybe change things, or maybe that wasn't the best way to deliver something, so that we can continue to make progress in these times. So again, moving in to the continuous learning, right? Nobody expected this triage mode that we're in, right? So it's going to be really important that we all have positive attitudes and we have a flexible mindset so that we can make this transition as smooth as possible. Hey, classes are not going to continue seamlessly, and lessons will have to be reworked in the constraints of time and technology, but don't let that anxiety of the times overwhelm you or your students. Just be flexible, right? And remember, students need you. They need the caring adults in their lives during these troubled times, right? The core business of schools, relationships and learning. Teachers should try to maintain that personal connection with their students. Though this will be challenging when we move to online, your smiling faces, your voices, and that calm tone will bring the much needed feel of normalcy to all, right? So again, focus in on the core business of schools, relationships and learning, because we are all learning new pedagogies and new skills. But think about it. The learning loss that we're going to have, this is a website that I love to go to. I go here often to just kind of see what's changed. And this is a map as of April 19th, right? And I gave you a quick, easy bit.ly to get to. It's in an Education Week article, and they update it daily, sometimes twice a day, because schools are closing. States are closing. And I got to tell you, when we look back into the past histories, remember when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans? It took them 2 years to make up the learning loss for those couple of months. Well, over half our states are in dark blue right here, and they have closed for the remainder of the school year. So yeah, we're going to have a learning loss. And if we do the math, the learning loss that we were having in the 3 months of summer has now been extended an additional 3 months of March, April, and May. And we can't afford to have that huge learning gaps. That's why it's really important for us to look at continuous learning. If you remember on that slide earlier where I talked about the difference between continuous learning and extensions, right? Continuous learning says, look at where your benchmarks were supposed to be. What was that new content that we didn't get to? Those are the things that we want to move to so that we don't have a full loss, right? And who knows what's going to happen in the fall. Well, hopefully we'll get back to our classrooms. So anyway, my goal is to help you with focusing on the essential standards, right? As we move forward, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have to reduce your expectations. I've watched The Nation, and I'm shocked at how many schools say, hey, you normally get up at 8 o'clock and you normally have English first period. So at 8 o'clock, your first period teacher is going to do a webinar. And at 9 o'clock, your second period teacher is going to do a webinar. And they're trying to pile on the same amount of work as they were before. But I got to tell you, I was an administrator at a virtual school. And let me tell you, it goes much slower. I've got a daughter who's from UNR, and she's taking 5 classes at UNR face to face. But when spring break rolled around, they said, don't come back. right? So now she's taken 5 online classes. And if we had known up front that she was going to take 5 online classes, we probably wouldn't have done it, because we know the pace is so much slower. It takes twice as long to complete tasks when you're not in that classroom and you're not consuming and with your peers and using the academic language. So it's going to be really important that we cut our workloads in half, right? And we can do that if we focus in on the essential standards, if we focus in on that new content that they were supposed to get had they been in front of us. So those power or those essential standards are going to be really, really important. I need you to go back and look at your Nevada academic standards and try to figure out what was that content, what was essential, what do the kids have to know as they exit my grade level or they exit my classroom period, right? Look at that benchmark calendar. How can you get that to your students? But also knowing that you're going to have to cut the workload in half, right? You're not going to be able to have the full discussions that you probably would have had in your classroom. You're not going to be able to have that hands-on experience that you also had in your classroom. So we're going to have to take things down a little bit so that we can focus in on those essential standards. And the reason to do that is we got digital content that's going to help us, right? We are not going to be the only person who's delivering it. So let's look at the difference of what we need to do. First thing we want to do is we want to go through and we want to gather some content and tools that we have at our disposal, right? When I talk about digital content, I'm talking about curriculum. I'm talking about things that are in subject areas like math, social studies, science, English, right? They're packaged sometimes as single learning objects, sometimes as a full lesson with assessments and assignments, and sometimes they're even packaged as a full course from beginning to end with modules and quizzes and tests, right? So that's digital content. It's stuff that's already packaged in our math, science, social studies, and English. And some of us, we have it because we have vendor contracts that we can utilize. Some of us, we can do it through OER, or what we call open educational resources. Khan Academy's one, CK12. These are areas that we can go to that has free digital content that we could use, we can partner with. I like to say, use the digital content, because when you use the digital content, then you're the one that's not having to lecture and provide all of the learning. You have this opportunity, like this aid in the classroom, to help you out. Now, how is that different from digital tools? Well, digital tools, they help us create, organize, and manage classrooms, right? They're specifically designed for, putting up classrooms, like Google Classroom. It's a tool, but when you open it, it's empty, right? We have to create it. We have to organize it. We're managing it. We're crafting instruction in it. And crafting takes a long time, believe me, right? So what we want to do is we want to reduce the cognitive load. And the best way to do that is to think less is more, right? The less digital content and tools I bring into a remote learning situation, the smaller cognitive load I'm putting on my students and their parents at home. And as administrator, the less digital content and tools I can bring into my building, the smaller cognitive load I'm putting on my teachers for professional development and new pedagogies and skills, right? So we want to reduce that by reducing, and I like to say maybe 1, 2, I even hate to say 3 at the most, especially in this remote learning environment. Now later, when we talk about blended classrooms, I might jump this up because you're in front of your kids. You can help them with the point and the clicks, and you can walk over and help them in a one-on-one tutoring. It's a little more difficult in our remote learning stages. So how do we engage students when we're thinking about remote learning, right? It's a little different. It's new skills, it's new pedagogies. But again, what do we want to focus in on? We want to focus in on relationships and learning, right? Helping our students understand that we are still here for them. That adult in their life that cares for their smile, that wants to give them the high five, that wants to ruffle their hair, right? Those relationships, that becomes important. And the learning, we've talked a lot about staying on par, making sure we're getting to that new content, right? Making sure that we're hitting our benchmark essential Empower standards through the end of the school year. So helping our students know that our core business is relationships and learning, and we understand that they and their parents and our admin and ourselves or learning new skills and pedagogies. And it's not going to be perfect, guys. Believe me. So if we make mistakes, we're just going to fail forward, right? It's our first attempt, right, at learning. First attempt at learning. It's okay to fail because we're just going to reflect. We're going to take that pain, reflect on it, and we're going to move forward, just like that quote said earlier. So how do we do that? Well, let's start by helping students manage their time, right? Helping them understand that by having devices in front of them, they're still going to have some type of time management from afar. Remember earlier we said that there were no bells and lots of distractions, right? So helping our students understand that first off, they need to have a learning space, someplace where they feel comfortable. I don't care, it could be the kitchen table, right? Currently, I'll tell you the truth, I am sitting on a futon couch with a TV tray and my laptop, right? It's my learning space, right? They'll want to have that learning space and help them find routines. Like over here on the right, you'll notice I gave you a small made up schedule, right? Help your kids with that so they understand that we want to have balance in our lives just like they want to have balance, right? I'm not starting at 8 o'clock in the morning like I would normally do in a traditional school. No way. There's no way that these kids are going to get up early because they don't have to, right? I mean, I got a teenage kids, a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, and let me tell you, I'm lucky if they're both out of bed by 10, mostly by 11, and some days it's not till 12. So trying to figure out what those routines are going to look like. So just giving them some balance here, but if you look real closely at this schedule, you'll notice it's not all school. Right? The schoolwork doesn't really hit in till about 10 o'clock. And that's offline as well as online schoolwork. And maybe 90 minutes max, because I don't know about you, sitting behind a computer or even studying for much more than about 90 minutes can become tedious, right? You know, it becomes really hard. So we'll need to take a break, take a stretch. Hey, go to lunch, go for a walk, do something that's movement right in between there. Spend maybe 90 minutes, break it up, and then come back maybe in the afternoon and spend another 90 minutes. But the key thing here is to stay informed. You'll notice how I started this day off. It starts off with checking your communication, right? Checking any communication that they have from their teachers or maybe from their friends. And look what happens at the end of the day. Again, they're going to check their learning, check to make sure that they've done their submissions, check for their assignment due dates, right? Because the key here is for them to be an active learner, right? To be an advocate for themselves. When they don't understand, in the classroom, it was really easy to go whisper to you. Well, maybe it wasn't so easy, right? Some of our kids, they never talked in the classroom. Well, in the remote learning environment, if you never talk, we don't know what's going on. So it's really important for us to maybe do those small groups or one-on-one checks with them, right? You'll notice at the bottom here in the orange, I didn't have a schedule that I said on Monday do this, on Tuesday do this, on Wednesday do this. But what I do is I have a schedule as a teacher that says, hey, on Monday, let's work on lesson 8. On Wednesday, we're going to take a quiz. And on Friday, we're going to start working on lesson 9. Now, in a normal classroom, it would have been a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We would have been doing something every day. But I got to reduce the expectations. I got to focus in on the essential standards, right? So I'm really taking this down because I know that the students don't have the same amount of time as they had before, right? And we know that there's tons of distractions. We know that there's no bells, and we're not there to motivate them except maybe through announcements and videos. And we want to do that. We want to get in front of our students, right? If you can do live sessions, do live sessions, because you and I know that it's so much easier for your students to consume content in an oral and visual way than it is for them to have to read it out of a textbook or do it in an online environment, especially for our language learners and some of our special ed students, right? I will tell you, that's why I'm a big fan of partnering with vendor product that has some of those built-in components with the drag and drops, the rollovers for academic vocabulary. Love those things, right? Because they can build better content than we can. And guess what? I can then supplement it with my heart and with my understanding, knowing from my years of experience where kids tend to have difficulties, where kids tend to have misconceptions. And I'm going to use my time to focus in on those types of things. So that's where we want to balance and help them with that time management from afar. So how do we keep students motivated, right? That's the hardest thing, right? I will be honest with you, as soon as they hear that it's not graded, Some kids, they're out of here. And some parents are like, I'm out of here too, because I'm not going to fight my kid to do the work, right? When it's not graded or it's not, not required. Well, we as educators have done a disservice in the education world. We haven't built that love for learning. And had we, then it wouldn't matter if the grades were there, right? So what we really need to do to keep our students motivated is to personalize the learning, right? We really need to let them know it's for them. They want to see you. They want to hear you. It doesn't have to be perfect. It does not have to be perfect. And I'm going to tell you, you want to praise, and you want to praise often, calling out names, calling them out in your live sessions, calling them out in your announcements, calling them out anytime, because the sweetest sound to anyone's ear is their own name. Hey, and don't forget to be silly. It's okay. Matter of fact, I would highly suggest put in some humor, put in some jokes, make it fun, have some music clips, have red day and have everybody wear red, or have silly hat day. You can do those things in your live session, right? Or you can start out a live session with a quote, something that drives your kids to want to be there. You heard me talk about my daughter who's at UNR. She has a math teacher that tells math jokes, right? And she's so excited when the math joke comes on the video because it was something that the teacher did every day in their face-to-face classroom and has now carried it over into their online classroom. And that's how you keep kids motivated, by being there. When you're there, they will want to be there. When their friends are there, they will want to be there. The fastest way to demotivate students is by not providing clear instructions. So I will tell you, it's going to be really important that when you do provide instructions, like your daily lessons, I need you to work on lesson number 9. I need you to take this test. I need you to read this. I want you to watch this video. Have those clear instructions and use numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 and very, very simple language, right? Again, we're going to keep in mind, some students have parents at home or maybe older siblings that can help them, and some students are struggling through it, right? And it's going to be important that you have routines and a clear, pattern to your lesson format so that there's no confusion. You want to make sure that that is going on and they can see what's going on. Right? So one of the things I like to say is uncomplicate things, right? Keep it simple. Right? Have a simple lesson format. Just like you might have had in your regular classroom, have an opening. Make it be a little small video opening that you record, right? And then it kind of really steps them through what the expectation for that lesson is. And have consistent placement on where kids can find things, where they can find their assignments, where they need to turn things in, those clear numbered instructions that we just talked about. Have constant communication. I'm a big fan of starting the week off with a weekly agenda and saying, as you saw in the earlier slide, this is what we're going to be doing for the week. And at the very end of the week, I like to have another communication that says, this is what we learned this week. Right? So having those weekly communications. Now, if you're an elementary school, teacher, that makes it pretty easy because you're only communicating one-on-one and they're only getting one piece of information. But imagine if you're my 16-year-old daughter who's at the Southwest CTA and every teacher is communicating with her. Well, she's in a 4x4 block. That's 8 teachers trying to communicate with her. And if they communicated every day, multiply that out times 5 days a week, that's 40 pieces of communication. Get with your grade level teams if you're in the middle school and try to figure out, this is what our team is doing. And so that you can send out a clear communication for that family so that they're not having to look in 16 or 18 different places, right? And if you're a high school, again, try to focus in on, on Mondays or Wednesdays, we're going to do math and science. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to try to focus in on English and social studies, right? Really try to, as an administrator and as a school, think through those routines that you have, but yet be flexible. Understand that students are having a hard time with what we call those hard deadlines, right? So we never know what's going on in their homes. So we want to make sure that we have deadlines, yes, because we want the kids to get things turned in, but they don't have to be hard deadlines, right? So we want them to be flexible within routines, right? And it's okay to ask for feedback and make adjustments as needed, right? We talked about failing forward. Here's a great opportunity. like I told you, the school that went 8, 9, 10, and everybody was doing a live session, by about the third day, parents and kids were done. They had to reflect and rechange and readjust. And it's okay to readjust, to make sure that, we uncomplicate things. We want to keep it simple. So how do we ensure that students are acquiring the knowledge that we want them to acquire? Well, the first thing it's going to be is we've got to capture their hearts, right? We have to make sure that we stay in our own classrooms, that they're seeing us, they're hearing us, and we're keeping them motivated. And it's through us. It's through that caring relationship. Remember, the core business of our classrooms, relationships first. It's through us that we can keep our students motivated, right? And it's going to be really important, that communication that we just talked about. What are the things that the students need to do this week? What should we have learned by the end of this week? Those summaries. And it's send out those weekly parent updates. Really important with our elementary schools, right? So that they know where they need to be, right? And the fewer clicks, the better, right? Taking down that cognitive load. Earlier, you heard me talk about content and tools and just having 1, 2, 3 at the most, trying to take those clicks down, right? And always give students an opportunity to practice, practice, practice. Multiple practices. You can have practices all over the place. You can have, in some software products, they allow you to not grade anything, right? Do lots of practice before you actually do the assessment. Make sure you have those no hard deadlines like you heard me talk about before, right? And multiple attempts, right? I love the fact where you can do, like in some softwares where it's like, try these problems, and then they give you the feedback and then you can try again. And if you were using software in your classroom before, then you continue to use that same software. But kids already have that knowledge. They already know how to log in. They already know how to work on it. So continue to use that, right? Build on things that you already know, right? Try not to go too far off into the deep end. So again, if we can help our students reduce the cognitive load, if we can take it down to the essential standards, we can really ensure that they're obtaining the knowledge that we need them to have, right? So what are these paths to success? Well, I will go back to the first 2 things that we started with today. Number 1 is making sure we understand that everybody is learning new skills in pedagogy and that we need to be patient, right? We need to be patient with them, right? And the second thing here is staying on the core business of schools. Making sure that we are working on relationships and learning. Undoubtedly, we're in an area of challenge, right? There's also this upside. We're also in this area of intense and immediate professional growth. Discovering new tools and resources and approaches that are going to nourish our practice, right? We're going to see our students in a new light. And you know what? The best thing is we can start considering how to continue to blend the learning when we return back to our 4-wall classrooms, right? So what are the steps? Have a plan, right? 3 simple steps. 1, focus in on the essential standards, right? Help your students with keeping it simple. Give them some ideas on how to manage time. Give them some weekly agendas. Keep your lesson plans down to like 3 to 4 steps. Keep it very simple. Detailed directions, right? Make those videos personal. Make them fun. Have humor in them. Be silly, right? If you can do this, essential standards, keeping it simple, and making it personal, not only will your students want to be in your remote classrooms, but they'll want to learn, right? They'll want to acquire the knowledge, and we'll have less learning gaps when we return back to our regular classrooms. If we can focus in on those essential standards, right? Continue the learning. Look at our benchmark calendars, figure out what were the Nevada academic standards that we missed, and how can we get those to our students. I got to tell you guys, I know we're in a challenging time, and I can only hope that through all of this, that we are going to learn how to blend our classrooms next term, right? Because your kids are going to be ready with the technology, you're going to be ready to release to digital technology, and we're going to have fabulous blended classrooms come fall. I will tell you, this video will be available for you guys up on the Department of Education's YouTube channel. I really appreciate you taking your time in the last 30 or so minutes joining with me and learning together. I wish you all the luck, and hopefully we'll see you again at a future recording. Have a great day.